It's Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. Coming up, we have a fight in Houston between the Heat and Rockets. There was a bunch of ejections, but the people responsible for the fight might have gotten away without being punished. All of that and more coming up on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night in 30 minutes. Wes Goldberg here with Swipa. However you might be tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thank you so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Got a great show for you. Recording this on a Sunday night. We're going to start in Houston, where we had a wild ending to HeatRockets, Swipa. In the final 46 seconds, we saw 5 players and 2 coaches get ejected. First, Fred VanVleet and Ime Udoka were ejected for arguing a 5-second violation. Then the headliner here, Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier, all 4 of those guys ejected after a bench-clearing brawl that started when Amen Thompson threw Hero to the ground. It was a good win for the Heat, but a crazy ending to it. So, have you ever seen somebody grab a guy by the collar and then swing him onto the ground the way that Amen Thompson did? Like, that was bad boy Piston stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was, to me, the whole thing was just unnecessary. Like, there's conflict, but what are we doing? You know what I mean? But also, too, like, hey, people have been asking for, like, the NBA is soft. The NBA ain't got no more dogs in it. Like, the NBA ain't got no rough and tuck. Everybody is friends, and they work out together, doing IG videos together. Well, Tyler Hero and Amen Thompson are like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I feel disrespected, so I'm going to hurl you to the ground, and then we're going to get a good old-fashioned East Coast, West Coast battle between – you got Death Row on one side, Bad Boys on the other side, and then you get what you saw today on the court. I mean, again, for the NBA, they don't love it, obviously. I think for the fans, they love it. I think for the Miami Heat, if I'm the Heat, look, we took down a top 3 seed in the Western Conference. We've been battling all year to try to gain, I think, momentum in the Eastern Conference. Tyler Hero's played at an incredible level all year. Despite all that hoopla, walk out of here with an L. So I would be ecstatic if I was a Miami Heat fan. Tyler
Hero was the best player on the court, figuratively and literally. He was also on literally the court at the end of this game. I thought the brawl itself was crazy because the referees had, and Mark Davis was the head official in this game. It felt like they completely lost control with 40. Like, the game was fine. And it wasn't like a heated thing until literally a minute left in the game. And then he hands Fred VanVleet the 5-second violation. And I thought he was a little early on it. Mark Davis was. He was standing right next to Fred VanVleet. You see the counting. He gets to the 4. And then you see VanVleet turn and start calling for a timeout. And I just think Mark Davis missed it. And that happens. Fred VanVleet is arguing with him a lot because he was right. Ime comes up to his defense because he was also right. And then Mark Davis just wasn't hearing it. He ends up ejecting both of them from the game. And I was like, that feels like that escalated really quick. Nikola Jovic comes down the other end for Miami, hits a huge 3-pointer to put Miami up 4 points at that spot. And then they're trying to get another inbound in. And Tyler Hero's doing that thing, where defenders kind of put their shoulder into your stomach area just to kind of make sure wall you off from where you're trying to go, but nothing like out of bounds, nothing wild. And they just kind of get tangled up. And the next thing you know, Amen Thompson's just got his Tyler Hero's collar like a New Jersey mob boss about to like throw up a guy against the wall and just throws him to the ground. And then, then all hell breaks loose. But just a weird ending to this one. To your point, though, the Heat have won 3 of their last 4 games without Jimmy Butler. And my takeaway as somebody who covers the team and cares about the team is this is the first fight in the this is Jimmy Butler's thing. He's the one that gets under your skin. He's the one that gets into a fight with TJ Warren or Najee Marshall or whoever it might be with his own coaches. Like, he's the guy that does that. The fact that the Heat are fighting and scrapping when Jimmy Butler is not in the game anymore, it would be a stretch to do the whole, like, there's a segment on some show that says, like, the Heat don't need Jimmy Butler anymore because they could fight without him. But I won't go that far, but I am noticing it, Swipa.
Look, in a regular season Sunday night bout with the young team that doesn't have a top-end superstar talent, you got to win. And you also, I think you held your poise better than they did. Fred VanVleet, Ime Udoka, Amin Thompson, they all lost it. They went too far. And even with the Mark Davis stuff, when you get to the end of a game, especially, things are chirpy. Who knows what Ime might have said prior to all this stuff happening. And Mark Davis just could have been like, look, like, I'm sick of y'all yapping, y'all complaining. Go ahead, hit the showers right now. You know what I mean? I don't feel like dealing with you all the rest of the game, and I don't want to hear you when I get off the court when the buzzer goes down. Could had you guarded Tyler Hero better, y'all would have taken, you got a W, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So ultimately, man, I think it's just a culmination of frustration. But honestly, Wes, you think about it, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some real, like, intense player interactions with referees as of late. And it would be unfair to say it started with Embiid, but I think that was a part of it. And I think today, this is just further tension that exists between the officiating crews and, like, how players are actually feeling about how the game is being officiated.
It's a great call. And look, I think some of the officiating hasn't been awesome either. And you see those frustrations bubble over. And that was sort of what I was teasing, is like, I kind of feel like the refs were sort of responsible for losing control in this one. And they're the ones that kind of get away with it. But let's get on to our second game of the night. Celtics-Pacers. Pacers go into Boston, beat the Celtics 123-114, 31 points from Tyrese Halliburton. The Celtics have lost 3 of their last 4, meanwhile. And after the game, Jason Tatum said, quote, "Nobody's panicking," end quote. So, Swiper, my question to you is simple. Should they be panicking?
Did someone ask him to panic, or are they panicking before?
Somebody asked him if they're panicking, and he said nobody's panicking.
Well, I want to say the Celtics are 4-5 in their last 9 games. So if you ask me how much that matters, it means nothing. The Celtics are still the prohibitive favorite to win the title for a reason. But, Wes, I think the thing that's changed is they don't have the same defensive ceiling they had last year.
Yep.
And if you catch them in rotation, if you get to the rim, you can score on this team, not at will, but at a very high level. And today, Tyrese Halliburton is just Pete Maravich, just dribbling all over the court. Jaylen Brown up in the action, KP up in the action, JT up in the action, Sam Hauser. And I think, or not KP, but Al Horford. I think they just have, like, so many different guys on the Pacers that, like, can create tension off the dribble or even just with their spacing. And I think the Pacers took advantage of that today. Whereas on Friday, I mean, it wasn't even a competition. And that's why I was shocked today, Wes, because I actually thought, like, the Celtics kind of gained momentum on Friday. They beat them so badly that by the time they get to Sunday, it was about to be over. But again, the Patriots started off the game crazy. They were up like 16-5. And I'm like, okay, like, you see early punch from a team that just got decimated, but it just kept going and they kept scoring. And then Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam. I really love what they have on the roster, and they played really well today.
The defensive point for Boston is exactly it. They're down to 12th in defensive rating, according to Cleaning the Glass, over the last 2 weeks. So it's not – panic is too strong. They should not be panicking, but they're defensively not as good. Now, no Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday in this game against the Pacers. It's probably a lot different, especially if they have Drew Holiday in this game. They've had guys in and out of their lineups all season long. It feels like they're never playing with their full roster, and it always feels like one of their better defenders is missing. But that didn't matter last year, and now it matters this year. And it probably is as simple as, well, they won the championship and they know what they're capable of doing.
Do you think the 1-2 is just not the same this year because they did go 16-3 in the playoff last year?
I think that's it. They've taken their foot off the gas, and we've seen them in big games kind of get up on national TV games and say, you know what, let's lock in defensively and let's be the team that we know that we can be. The guy who really sticks out, Jaylen Brown, has been bad defensively, and he's way better than what he's been, but the effort for him has just not been there on that end. And even in this game, just like flat out, just like not rotating, not closing out.
Right.
There's just some weird, like, and So I'm not panicking either because they are the prohibitive favorite in the Eastern Conference. They're the favorite to win the entire championship. Once they get their guys back, once they're really trying in the playoffs, they'll be fine. But you know what? You also don't want to start building bad habits, and you don't want to act entitled after one championship, right? Like
But you know how rare it is for Tatum to be a minus 21 in a game?
Crazy.
Like, you know what I mean? Like their rosters are so stacked, and Tatum is also such a good floor raiser. You never see that. And I think today, those are just the kind of slips you just don't typically see from them. But again, as you said, in the 2 week span, I'm not looking at this Pacers game just in this little window. They're 4-5, I believe. And they haven't had some losses to some teams that it's just like, huh. But at the end of the day, I also don't care all that much because it's December, right? And so I don't think that's actually going to affect anything for them long term. But I do think that the Celtics are more vulnerable than they were last year. But the thing is, their ceiling is also just as high, which is maybe just as dangerous.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Pacers are starting to turn things around. Here's Tony East from Locked On Pacers.
What a response from the Pacers, 123-114 in Boston. They beat the Celtics. They take the season series over the Celtics 2-1. This one was all Tyrese Halliburton in the second half. He had 31 points in the game, a huge response after his 4-point stinker against OKC earlier this week. The Pacers really wanted this one. Hard to beat a team like the Pacers twice in a row, and the Celtics found out the hard way. Pacers defense was huge when this game got tight. Celtics run made it a 2-point game at 105-103. The Pacers answered with 13 straight points. Boston did score for 4 minutes. Believe it or not, the Pacers have been pretty dang good on defense of late, and that has what's guided them to now 7 wins in their last 10 games. They're playing much better. Halliburton looked great. Andrew Nembhard's return has been everything for this Pacers team. Siakam and Mathurin chipped in at key moments. Here come the Pacers. They're 16-17, have been one of the better teams in the league the last few weeks. We'll have much more on Locked On Pacers.
Check out Locked On Pacers and Locked On Celtics with more with what's going on in Indiana and in Boston. But coming up, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Swipe, I think they're back. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready for a boost of confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in a discreet, plain packaging. And with Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete and quick 100% online consultation, and you could get your free prescription today. So visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX. Better sex made simple. We'll be right back. Thanks for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen every day. Let's go on to Minnesota, in San Antonio, where the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Spurs 112-110. No, I'm sorry. This game was in
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, I had it right the first time. So Dante DiVincenzo was great in this one.
Yeah.
That's where I want to start. Of all things, because he has 26 points off the bench for them, hits a big three-pointer at the end, huge offensive rebound to keep a play alive that led to a big Rudy Gobert tip-in the fourth quarter, breaks up a pass to Victor Wembanyama on the break to maintain a three-point lead in the final 2 minutes. With him playing better, and he's been, not just in this game, he started off in Minnesota not being able to hit his shots, all these things. He's shooting like 40+% over the last 10 games from three-point range. He's playing so much better, and it feels like him and everything else is just sort of unlocking for this Timberwolves team right now, who have been playing really well lately.
Look, I don't think they were ever like when you get like a player like Julius Randle on board and you don't have a player like Cat who's been there since 2015. I think it's just a shift, and it takes time. And their offense is still not good, but their defense is what slipped. And so now they're kind of picking up defensively, and I think that made a difference. And so, yeah, I mean, Dante DiVincenzo, he was so good last year with the Knicks, especially the last stretch of the season. I think he's finding his groove a little bit. This is a back-to-back really good games from him, really impactful games. So, I mean, they're definitely turning a corner, I think, and just getting more confident with their squad. But again, Anthony Edwards today was 6 of 20 from the field. So, it's not like they got incredible performances at the top. But again, you get another kind of outlier game from Dante DiVincenzo relative to this year. Rudy Gobert had 17 and 15. He also was killing it from the free throw line in the fourth quarter, hit some really big shots that helped to turn the tide of the game. Jaden McDaniels with 12 and 10, played really well, had a nice putback today as well. And then Julius Randle, 16, 4 and 4. I mean, they just got contributions from across the board. But again, they also are playing against a team in the Spurs that's they're good, but they're also learning. And they don't have a real offensive process. Even the last 3 minutes of the game, Wes, I'm watching, and it's okay, pick and roll, okay, it doesn't work. Pick and roll, reset, pick and roll, reset, pick and roll, reset. Get Victor Wembanyama the ball, and let's hope for the best. I mean, that's not a real offense like you would see versus some other teams down the stretch of the game. Now, he got some buckets, got that dunk over, I think it was Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert came backside and Jaden McDaniels, which was incredible, an incredible play from Victor. But I also think they played versus the teams today that just didn't have the offensive process in place to beat them down the stretch of the game either.
I think that's totally fair. I also was super impressed with Minnesota's defense on the final possession, right? It's one thing to have no process for the Spurs. It's another thing to just not even get a dribble in the right direction. And that's basically what happened for San Antonio on that final inbound sideline out of bounds play. They get it into Victor Wembanyama. They lock him up. They force him to pick up his dribble. He gets it back to Chris Paul. Chris Paul's I don't even want the ball. What are we even doing here? You take it back. You're the star player. You're 7 foot a million. You're supposed to just shoot over somebody. But the Timberwolves put the clamps on him, and it was one of those rare occasions where it looked like the defense that kind of fueled their Western Conference Finals run last year. And so it's nice to know that if you're a Timberwolves fan, we still have that gear because we haven't seen it a lot this year.
Okay. Do you know Chris Paul had 14 assists and 0 turnovers today?
What's new?
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. And I really think, when you watch the Spurs play, he makes so much of a difference for them in their process. They're such a much more organized team now than they were last year. But I think on that last possession you speak of, Dante did a really good job of hedging, especially on Jeremy Sohan. But the issue was Victor, he'll figure this out as he gets older. When you're at that high at the top of the key, especially in a late game situation, the last thing you want to do is dribble too early or pick up your dribble. Right. Because once he picked up the dribble, the defense won. You're 30 feet away from the basket in the left corner, and you're being highly contested. So now the only options are to shoot over the top, which would be crazy, or to pass the ball out and not have the foot speed or have the time to get the ball back to make a real play on it. And the Wolves, their veteran leadership and their veteran defensive mechanisms that they have put in place, those things showed to be true in those moments because Victor just didn't know this is like a cardinal sin versus an elite defensive team that's been here before. So I actually think that was a very good learning moment for him for the rest of the Spurs to we actually could have won that game if I don't make this kind of mistake, or if I just get the ball closer to the basket. That way, if I do get stuck, I can shoot the ball.
Look, he has 34 points in this game. It's really hard to nitpick. It's still a Victor Wembanyama performance, and it's always great. But it feels like he's just on the perimeter way too much for a guy with his size. And I understand that you have Rudy Gobert on the other side of it, but he had his best moments in this game were the dunks that you were talking about, the stuff that he was doing in the paint. Rudy Gobert, as great as he is, Victor Wembanyama is this once in a lifetime player because he could still dunk over Rudy Gobert, which is insane. Now he goes 1 for 6 from 3-point range in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And there's so many times there, and you can even see it with Chris Paul being can you just cut? Can you just hit him with a dive cut? Because there are just times where it's open for him, but he's just so natural. He's just so used to popping in those situations and he wants to shoot the three, and I get it, but it's every night he's 10, 11, 12 3-point attempts per game, and it just feels like it's not. I don't want to do the whole Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley thing and just get in the paint. You're a big man, play like a big man. Take your 8 3-pointers a game, but maybe 12 is a little too much. And he should just, especially in the fourth quarter when you just need to go get a bucket.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you gotta, I think to his thinking and maybe where he is in his development, people don't realize that like it's very hard to play inside of the 3-point line in the NBA because how physical it is, like how strong everybody is. So I think for Wemby, trying to like establish position on like, let's say like even 20 plays a game where I'm trying to get the ball at the nail or like in the post and everybody around me is like stronger and more stout than me. I think at that point it's like, well, I'm getting pushed out anyway, so why don't I just actually be here on the perimeter? That way I can negate some of your strength with my length. And then if Wemby gets one step to the rim, it's a layup or it's a dunk. And so also like, because the NBA is like kind of at this place where it is in modernity, I think Wemby is also just taking advantage of the fact that like 3-pointers are just worth so much more than anything else. But I think to your point, Wes, the older he gets, and I think like the more developed the Spurs do with their system, not a lot of spacing around him outside of like Devin Vassell, like Sohan is not a 3-point shooter like that. Now Champagny is. CP3 isn't really, that's not what he does. I do think as he gets like older and they build different types of team around him, he'll be able to utilize that interior force a little bit more.
Look, I think that's fair, and maybe this is just okay. First few years in the league, I'm just not going to be banging bodies with Rudy Gobert and Nikola Jokic every night, and this is how I'm going to do it. And once he starts to develop a bigger body, maybe that comes with it. But there just feels like there's opportunities where you can just dive to the rim and just dunk it. But that's it for that game. Check out Locked On Timberwolves and Locked On Spurs for more on that matchup. We're going to go to Orlando next, where the Magic came back from 21 points down, won that game with a buzzer beater. What does that say about the Orlando Magic? Plus, we went into the night thinking that we might have a Western Conference final preview, or at least a potential matchup there. That game wasn't competitive, but it might have told us exactly what we need to know about the Western Conference. All of that and more coming up next on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Let's go to Orlando, where the Magic come back from 21 points down to beat the Brooklyn Nets on a Cole Anthony buzzer beater. Here's Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic with more.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich here at the Kia Center as the Orlando Magic come from behind with a 22-4 run in the fourth quarter to defeat the Brooklyn Nets 102-101 on a game-winning runner by Cole Anthony with about 6 seconds left. It's another incredibly gutsy victory for this Orlando Magic team that's playing without Paolo Banchero, playing without Franz Wagner, and at least for the second half of this game, playing without Jalen Suggs with a sprained wrist. These are the kind of culture-defining, program-defining wins that tell you have something really special going on with this team. This is a game you're supposed to lose. The Magic were supposed to lose this game. You know, yes, you're playing the Brooklyn Nets. Yes, you're playing a team that may be a little bit weaker than you in the standings, but being down so much, being without so much energy, these are the games that you just drop. They happen. It's a long regular season. But the Magic kept fighting. They kept clawing. They got back to playing defense. They played Magic basketball. As Jamal Mosley said after the game, when you put Magic on your chest, when you wear that Magic uniform, you're going to play a certain way. It took the Magic a little bit longer to find it in this game, but they found it and they ran away or they didn't run away. They found a way to gut out a victory, one that could be very, very important down the road, another very much program-defining win for the Orlando Magic.
It really was. This is the thing that keeps impressing me with Orlando. It's more than a next man up mentality, right? Which is kind of just empty coach speak at this point. But no Franz Wagner, no Paolo Banchero. They're just down guys all the time. They should have no business winning some of these games. And the way that as hard as that they play, Jamal Mosley deserves so much credit for instilling a culture in Orlando that this is just a team that is becoming a regular season wins machine.
Yeah, I mean, if we were just doing pure, the team is just playing the hardest, doing the most with the most losses. Yeah, Jamal Mosley is probably coach of the year right now. I just think what he's done is incredible. And then he loses Jalen Suggs today. And it's just a constant machine. But yeah, look, the Nets aren't good. They're obviously missing Dennis Schroeder. He's gone. They got D'Lo.
And Dorian Finney-Smith during the day. Yeah.
Yeah, like they have a lot of moving parts. But yeah, it's a huge win. And I think for them to be able to come out on top tonight is really important. And Cam Thomas making his return, just 25 points, like immediately, like just an uber score. Like, it was a good game, and I really like watching how the Magic continue to just learn over time, like how to go through adversity, how to adjust what they're doing based on how their opponent is playing, and in terms of their intensity where they need to go. They also have done a good job of putting like veterans on the roster. Having Wendell Carter Jr., having KCP, Cole Anthony's been in that system for years now. I want to say it's like 6 years or something, like maybe year 5. I can't remember. But Gary Harris, they have players that have been here. So they were doing it the right way. You got a bunch of young guys, but you got players that have been in the league for a while that know how to win, that know what they're doing. NBA champion multiple time at KCP. And you put that together, I think that's where you get this kind of special stuff.
My favorite thing about this, Jody Fernandez asked at the end of the game, like kind of what happened at the end there. How'd you give up that big run at the end? He's like, it felt like we could have used one more adult on the court. I was like, oh yeah, somebody like Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe a little shot at management. Like, really, you're gonna trade my dude on a game day? Love that. Let's go to Oklahoma City, where the Thunder beat the Grizzlies 130-106, a blowout win for the Thunder in what could be a potential Western Conference Finals matchup. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 35 points, just dominant in this game. No Ja Morant in this one from Memphis, so take that for what it's worth. It's probably hard to take that much away from this game, but at least in terms of what this matchup could look like. I do think, though, the Grizzlies are good. They're very good, and they could make a run to the Western Conference Finals. I think they're that good when they're healthy. But I also think that this is probably how it looks with or without Ja Morant, because the Thunder are just that much better in the Western Conference than everybody else. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have Ja. They lack their best scorer, their best playmaker, their primary initiator, and an offense that I think needs him more than most offenses might. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big loss. And so I think tonight, they're struggling to get shots. There's so many POA defenders. They have Isaiah Hartenstein, and they're constantly putting pressure on the ball. The Thunder are. So it's like, okay, well, we're missing our dude that does all this stuff at the highest level. And then now we're dealing with like intensity all the time. Like, whenever the Thunder play you, there isn't like a drop off. They are all in attack mode. That's how they're coached. And so tonight, Shai doesn't feel any pressure. I don't know what got into him before the game started, or even like maybe, oh, there's no Ja here. I guess I'll make a spectacle of it. What did he go 9 of 10 to start the game off? Like, and again, just jumper, mid range, jumper, turn over the right shoulder, over the backboard, like, and then in and out, hedgy, layup, layup. Like, it's just super easy, super efficient, and that's what the Thunder do. They know what they are. They play really intense defense. They give the ball to Shai. They take really high-level, efficient shots, and then they basically they bludgeon you to death with the amount of defenders they have and how they attack you. And that's what makes them so good. And that's what I think is going to make them so hard to beat in a playoff setting, because now they got a real superstar, number one. But then on the other end, we just have something that nobody else has, and it's just we have a litany of defenders that can get in your chest every single possession.
And they're doing all of this still without Chet Holmgren. It's crazy. Right. Like, Jalen Williams can come out. He only had 14 points, and it wasn't the most efficient night for him. 0 for 5 from 3-point range. But there are games where he just comes out and he's like, you know what, Shai, relax. I got it tonight. And he just does it. And so, you get a bunch of great performances off the bench. AJ Mitchell has been like really good for them kind of right away.
Yeah, he's been, last couple weeks, he's been really good. Yeah.
I really enjoy watching him. He's just another one of those guys. It's like I remember watching him in the first week of the season. I'm like, wait, who is this guy? They just have another one of these big bodied, like kind of wingy, like Lou Dort sized players. It feels like they have like 8 of these guys all the time. They just keep finding these guys. So they're going to, like I said, I think the Grizzlies are awesome. Very hard to take anything away from them, but these are games where it just always reminds you, OKC, that's the team to beat in the Western Conference, and everybody else is sort of trying to punch up in that regard. Last game of the night in Toronto, where the Hawks blew out the Raptors. Here's Brad Rowland from Locked On Hawks with more.
My name is Brad Rowland. The Atlanta Hawks are 3 games over 500 for the first time in more than 2 years. They've now won 4 straight games. They go into Toronto on a Sunday evening and absolutely bludgeon the Raptors. Final score of a 29-point victory, and it honestly wasn't even that close by the end. The Hawks forced 31 turnovers defensively. That includes 22 steals, their most steals in the game in more than 25 years. And that all came without Dyson Daniels, the league's preeminent steal creator. It was just basically the Hawks swarming the entire game, certainly some help from the Raptors, who were not good at all in this game. But offensively, the Hawks put up 130 plus. Trae Young was dominant in this game, a 30-10 game. Once again, ho-hum for him, but he was in total control, plus 39 in the game for Trae. And with Donovan Harold also playing well, the Hawks were just really, really good. In a game where they were actually underdogs at tip-off because of the tough schedule spot, a lot of travel, back-to-back. Toronto was well-rested at home, all that stuff, but the Hawks just didn't care. By the end of this one, they were dominant in this game. Again, 4 games in a row in the win column, and now they go out west for the rest of this road trip. We'll get into all of that and more on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
Definitely go check out Locked On Hawks for more on the rolling Atlanta Hawks. They look great. He's right that Toronto was not good in this game, specifically Scotty Barnes. 8 turnovers for him in this game. But if I could direct anybody to any highlight from this game, it's this Jalen Johnson 3/4 court jump pass, one arm. I don't even know how to explain it. It was like maybe the best pass I've seen all season, at least like a hit ahead pass. It was crazy, Swipa. What stood out to you in this game?
Yeah, Trae Young's having an All-NBA year. He's going to get his respect this year. It will happen. He is going to make an All-NBA team. Jalen Johnson's been incredible. He might make an All-Star game. He's been that good. He's at least going to get votes. Yeah, Zach continuing to figure out like how to play basketball with them. DeAndre Hunter, another off the bench 20-point game. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Hawks have been kind of building up to this moment for the last 3 years, I would say, to like have like a bunch of wings, good enough interior play, and Trae Young. And that's exactly what they are. A bunch of wings that can do a bunch of different things, a couple really good centers relative to like the rest of the league, and Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu. And then Trae Young is just like, all right, I can do whatever I want now.
I love, like, this roster makes more sense, right? The pecking order is clear. Trae Young gets everybody involved. Jalen Johnson is this 20-point per game score, near triple-double machine guy. And then everybody else just makes their threes. DeAndre, make your 3. Zachary Shea, make your 3s. You, Clint Capella, and Onyeka Okongwu, set screens, roll hard to the basket. The pecking order makes a lot of sense here. And what I like about them is Trae Young is still extremely important for a lot of obvious reasons, but he's not like essential. Like, he doesn't have to have a great night in order for them to win because they have these other things that are going. He's kind of the engine that gets them to go. But when I say he's not essential, he doesn't have to score 30 for the Hawks to win a basketball game. There's other ways for them to win basketball games now, which is
when you're a primary offensive engine, you have to be the one that stirs the drink. The thing is, the box score doesn't have to necessarily reflect that if you get everybody else involved and get the play initiated. But it's just with Trae Young, he's such a good passer that it's basically guaranteed he's getting between 9 and 14 assists every night.
It's crazy. That wraps up Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.